The B-17, a fortress of the skies, lay grounded, a hulking skeleton of its former glory. Rust stained its aluminum skin, and the propellers hung limp like broken wings. To the war-weary men who gathered around it in the dusty hangar, it was just another relic, a testament to battles fought and a future that felt just as broken. Among them stood Sergeant Miller. His eyes, once sharp with the terror of combat, now held a deep, cynical resignation. He'd seen too many good planes go down, too many engines seize up, to believe in miracles anymore. "She's done for," Miller declared, his voice raspy, pulling a pack of Lucky Strikes from his pocket. "I'll bet a whole carton of these that no one gets her to cough even a single spark." The other mechanics, equally jaded, nodded in agreement. They'd tried everything. Every wire checked, every fuel line purged, every switch flicked. The B-17 remained stubbornly silent, a monument to defiance. Just then a small shadow detached itself from the gloom of the hangar's entrance. A boy no older than 10, his clothes patched and faded, clutching something tightly in his hand, cautiously approached the massive aircraft. He was clearly out of place, a wisp of a child amidst the grizzled veterans and the heavy machinery. Miller barely noticed him at first, dismissing him as another curious kid drawn to the spectacle of a grounded warbird. The boy, however, didn't just look. He circled the nose of the plane, his gaze fixed on the cockpit, then on the intricate engine housing. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions. Instead, with a quiet determination that belied his size, he slipped past the mechanics, past Miller's dismissive glance, and somehow found his way into the pilot's seat. A nervous murmur went through the small crowd. What was this kid doing? Miller scoffed, ready to tell the boy to scram. But before he could utter a word, the boy leaned forward. With a simple, almost sacred gesture, he produced a tarnished copper penny from his pocket. He didn't fumble, didn't hesitate. His small fingers, guided by an instinct the men had long forgotten, found a loose connection, a tiny gap near the ignition panel. He wedged the penny into place. A collective breath hitched, then a click, a whirring, a cough, and then, with a thunderous roar that shook the very foundations of the hangar, the B-17's mighty engines burst to life. Smoke billowed, propellers spun, and the air thrummed with raw power. The men staggered back, disbelief etched across their faces. Miller, his cigarette still unlit in his hand, stared, his jaw slack. The impossible had just happened, but as quickly as the miracle unfolded, the boy vanished. One moment, he was a silent, unassuming figure in the cockpit. The next, he was gone, a ghost in the roaring machine. Miller rushed forward, pushing past the stunned mechanics, his mind reeling. Who was that kid? How did he know, and why did he disappear? The powerful hum of the B-17 now felt like a taunt, a reminder of the fleeting moment of magic that had just slipped through his fingers. He scanned the hangar, then the dusty road outside, but the boy was gone. A desperate, burning need ignited within Miller. He had to find that boy. This wasn't just about a plane. It was about something far deeper, a spark of hope he hadn't felt in years, now inextricably linked to a vanished child. Years blurred into decades. The roar of that B-17 engine, the impossible spark of life, became a recurring echo in Miller's mind, a memory he couldn't shake. He saw the boy's small, determined face, the glint of the copper penny over and over, in waking thoughts and restless dreams. He searched, relentlessly, through old town records, forgotten orphanages, and the fading recollections of fellow veterans. Each dead end was a fresh wound, yet he couldn't give up. The boy had started more than just an engine that day. He had reignited a soul. Then one quiet afternoon, a soft thud against his front door. An envelope, plain and unmarked, slid through the mail slot. A solitary knock echoed in the sudden silence. Miller froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the mail slot. The soft, distinct knock was unusual. Mail typically just arrived. He pulled his hand back, suspicion battling a sudden, irrational hope. He dismissed the thought as foolish, yet a strange tremor ran through him. He peered through the peephole, seeing no one. Slowly, he unlatched the door. Only a plain, unmarked envelope lay on the porch. He picked it up, fingers tracing the smooth paper. No return address, no stamp. Just his name, handwritten in an unfamiliar script. His heart pounded. This felt significant. He carried it to his worn armchair, the one where he'd chased phantoms for countless evenings. With a deep breath, he tore open the flap. Inside, A single folded sheet of paper lay alongside something small and round. He unfolded the paper first, his eyes devouring the elegant, precise handwriting. "Mr. Miller," it began, "you may not remember me. It has been a long time. Over 60 years, in fact. But I remember you, and I remember the B-17. Miller's breath hitched. The B-17. It couldn't be. His hands trembled. "I was the boy in the hangar that day. The one with the penny. I know you searched for me. I heard stories. I know you never gave up. For that I am truly sorry. I had my reasons for disappearing, reasons I hope to explain if you would allow me the chance." A potent wave of emotion washed over him. It was him, the boy, the penny, the roar that had shattered his cynicism. He looked down at the small, tarnished copper penny that had fallen from the envelope, dull with age, just like the one he remembered. A tangible link to an impossible moment, a piece of his lost hope returned. The letter continued, offering an old-fashioned landline number and a single request. "Please call if you are willing to talk. My name is Thomas. I live in Green Valley, California." Miller stared at the penny, then at the phone number. Thomas. A name, an address, a number, so simple, so real, lay before him after a lifetime of searching. The silence of his living room was deafening, filled with 60 years of unanswered questions. He picked up the phone, his fingers hovering over the rotary dial, the receiver heavy with expectation. What would he say? He swallowed hard. This was a bridge across a chasm of time. He took a deep breath and began to dial, each turn a deliberate act. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, each ring stretched into an eternity. Miller's heart hammered. He imagined the man on the other end, waiting. He gripped the receiver tighter. A click. A soft, steady voice, older but with a hint of fragility, answered. "Hello?" Miller's voice caught. He cleared it. "Is this Thomas?" A pause. A beat of silence. Then the voice a little stronger. "It is. And you must be Mr. Miller." "Yes," Miller managed, barely a whisper. "It's me." Another profound silence. "I'm glad you called," Thomas said, relief in his tone. "I wasn't sure you would." "How could I not?" Miller replied, raw honesty. "I've been looking for you. For a very long time." "I know," Thomas said softly. "I always hoped you would find me, or that I would find the courage to find you." They spoke for what felt like hours. Thomas explained he had been a runaway, fascinated by planes, noticing the loose connection. The penny was a desperate improvisation. He hadn't meant to disappear, merely fled, scared of trouble. Miller absorbed every word, fragmented memories clicking into place. Any anger had faded, replaced by understanding and gratitude. The boy had saved more than a plane. He had, in a profound way, saved Miller too, giving him a quest, a purpose beyond the war's end. I would like to meet you, Thomas," Miller said, urgent and vulnerable. "If you're willing." "I am, Mr. Miller," Thomas replied, gentle. "More than willing. I've waited a long time for this." They arranged to meet the following Tuesday at a small diner in Green Valley. Miller hung up, a lightness he hadn't felt in decades settling in his chest. The penny still lay on the table, a silent testament to a miracle, a symbol of hope finally realized. The world, which had felt so bleak, suddenly seemed brighter. The day of the meeting arrived with a crisp autumn chill. Miller dressed carefully. He drove to Green Valley, his mind replaying the call, imagining the man Thomas had become. He felt a nervous flutter, like a young man on a first date. He pulled into the diner's parking lot, a quaint spot smelling of coffee. He saw Thomas immediately, sitting alone at a booth near the window. An older man now, with kind eyes and silver hair. Not the ragged boy, but Miller recognized a quiet dignity. Thomas looked up as Miller entered, their eyes meeting across the room. A slow, knowing smile spread across Thomas's face. He rose, a little stiffly, and walked towards Miller. No hesitation, just deep, unspoken recognition. They stood for a moment, two men connected by an extraordinary moment, separated by a lifetime, now finally reunited. Thomas extended a hand, and Miller took it, his grip firm. "Mr. Miller," Thomas said, his voice warm. "Thomas," Miller replied, his own voice thick with emotion. He noticed the calloused hands, the gentle eyes, the echoes of the determined boy. Then, without another word, They embraced. It was a long, silent hug, a release of 60 years of longing, regret, and unspoken gratitude. The diner faded away, sounds dissolving. For a brief, powerful moment, it was just the two of them, the veteran and the boy who had sparked a dying engine and rekindled a soul. When they finally pulled apart, tears were in Miller's eyes and a profound, peaceful smile on Thomas's face. They sat down, the tarnished penny resting between them on the table, a silent witness to their improbable reunion. The menu lay untouched between them, forgotten amidst the weight of 60 years. Thomas, his gaze gentle, reached out and lightly tapped the tarnished penny. "This little piece of copper," he began, his voice soft. "It changed everything for both of us, didn't it?" Miller nodded, still processing the sheer improbability of the moment. "More than you could ever know, son. More than you could ever know." Thomas took a deep breath, his eyes clouding slightly with distant memories. "I was just a kid, Mr. Miller, a runaway. My folks, they weren't around much. The streets were my home more often than not. I'd seen that B-17 sitting there for days. I was fascinated by planes, always had been. I'd sneak into the hangar just to look at them. That day, I noticed something. A loose wire barely visible near the ignition. It looked like it just needed a contact." He paused, a faint smile touching his lips. "I didn't have much, just that penny. It was a good luck charm my grandma gave me. I figured, what's the harm? I just wanted to see if I could make it work. I'd never seen an engine that big come to life before. When it roared, I was terrified, not just by the noise, but by what I'd done. I thought I'd be in serious trouble, that they'd think I was messing with military property. So I ran, as fast as my legs could carry me. I didn't mean to disappear, Mr. Miller. I just disappeared out of fear." Miller listened, every word a brushstroke filling in the missing canvas of his past. The anger, the frustration, the decades of unanswered questions, all dissolved into a profound understanding. This boy, a mere child, had acted out of curiosity, desperation, and a raw, unadulterated ingenuity. There was no malice, no grand scheme, just a simple act that had unforeseen, monumental consequences. "I looked for you, Thomas," Miller said, his voice husky. "For years, every lead, every rumor, I never stopped." "I know," Thomas replied, his eyes meeting Miller's. "I heard stories. Whispers from the old-timers sometimes. A sergeant, they'd say, who never gave up on finding the kid who started the B-17. It made me feel seen, even when I was hiding." He leaned forward slightly. "And that B-17, Mr. Miller? Did it fly again?" Miller chuckled, a genuine, heartfelt sound that hadn't escaped him in years. "Oh, she flew, Thomas. She flew all right. Straight back into the fight. You didn't just start an engine that day, you put a fighting chance back in the sky. That plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, we called her after that. She completed dozens more missions, saved countless lives. It was like she had a new heart, a new spirit, all thanks to a copper penny and a scared kid." Thomas absorbed this, a mixture of awe and humble pride on his face. "I never knew. I always wondered. I always hoped it helped." "It helped more than you can imagine," Miller assured him. "For me, too. After the war, I felt lost. That search for you, it gave me a purpose. A reason to keep going, to believe in something beyond the wreckage." He reached across the table, his aged hand resting gently on Thomas's forearm. "You saved me, Thomas, in more ways than one." Thomas's eyes welled up. I wish I'd come forward sooner, but life, it got complicated. I eventually found my way to a foster family, a good one. They gave me a home, an education. I learned to fix things, always with planes in the back of my mind. I became an aerospace engineer, Mr. Miller. I dedicated my life to making sure those machines flew safely. Because of you. Because of that day." Miller's heart swelled. The boy, a runaway with a penny, had become a man who built wings for the future. The simple act had rippled through 60 years, shaping two lives in profound and unexpected ways. Thomas's choice to run, born of fear, had paradoxically led him to a career dedicated to the very machines that had once intimidated him, and in doing so, he had, in his own quiet way, continued to save planes, just as he had saved the B-17. "An aerospace engineer," Miller repeated, a proud smile spreading across his face. "That's incredible, Thomas. Absolutely incredible." He looked at the penny again, then back at Thomas. "So, you kept the penny all these years. "This one, yes," Thomas confirmed, picking it up. "My grandmother's good luck charm. I carried it with me always. It was a reminder of that moment, of what's possible, even when you have nothing but a little hope and a piece of metal. But I also had another one, a replica, that I used to keep in my desk at work, a reminder of why I did what I did." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking, sharing stories, filling in the vast gaps of their lives. Miller spoke of his struggles, his quiet life, the persistent ache of the unanswered question. Thomas recounted his journey from a scared runaway to a respected professional, the long shadow of that day never quite leaving him. He spoke of his own family, his children, who now, for the first time, would learn the extraordinary story of their father's past. The conversation flowed easily, a natural rhythm developing between the veteran and the engineer, two men from different worlds, now inextricably linked. It was a communion of souls, a shared history finally brought into the light. Miller felt a lightness he hadn't experienced since before the war, a sense of completion that settled deep in his bones. The burden he had carried for decades had finally lifted. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the diner, Thomas looked at Miller, his kind eyes reflecting a deep gratitude. "Thank you for never giving up, Mr. Miller. Thank you for searching." "Thank you for being found, Thomas," Miller replied, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for the penny. Thank you for the roar. Thank you for everything." He reached for the tarnished coin on the table, carefully picking it up. "This isn't just a penny, is it? It's a symbol of hope, of ingenuity, of a second chance." Thomas nodded, a peaceful smile on his face. "It truly is." Their reunion was not just the closing of a chapter, but the beginning of a new one. The new chapter unfolded with the quiet grace of a long-awaited sunrise. Miller and Thomas became inseparable, their weekly diner meetings evolving into an unspoken ritual. They'd sit for hours, not always talking, sometimes just sipping coffee, the comfortable silence between them thicker and more meaningful than any words. Miller found himself laughing more, a deep, resonant sound that had been absent from his life for far too long. He spoke of the war, not with the old, bitter resignation, but with a newfound perspective, sharing stories he hadn't dared utter in decades, now with a listener who understood, who was, in a strange twist of fate, part of his most profound wartime memory. Thomas, in turn, shared the trajectory of his life, his journey from a scared, ingenious boy to a respected aerospace engineer. He spoke of the challenges, the mentors, the quiet pride he felt watching planes he'd helped design take to the skies. He introduced Miller to his family, his wife, 2 grown children, and a couple of grandchildren. Miller, a man who had lived a solitary existence, suddenly found himself embraced by a warmth he'd never imagined. Thomas's children, initially curious about this grizzled veteran their father had suddenly brought into their lives, were captivated by the story of the B-17 and the penny. One Thanksgiving, gathered around a table laden with turkey and pumpkin pie, Thomas's youngest grandson, a bright-eyed boy named Sam, looked up at Miller. "Grandpa Thomas said you searched for him for 60 years, Mr. Miller. Why? Was he that important?" Miller paused, a gentle smile on his face. "Sam," he began, his voice soft, "your grandpa didn't just start a plane that day. He started something inside me, a hope, a reason to believe that even in the darkest times, there's always a spark of good, a flicker of ingenuity waiting to light things up." Thomas's eyes met Miller's across the table, a silent acknowledgement of the truth in those words. Their story, once a personal odyssey, began to echo beyond their immediate circle. Thomas, with Miller's encouragement, was invited to speak at a local historical society event, then later at an aviation museum's annual gala. The tale of the B-17, the penny, and the unlikely reunion captivated audiences. Miller, initially reluctant, found himself standing beside Thomas on a small stage, his voice usually gruff, softening as he recounted the day the B-17 roared back to life. He spoke of the cynicism that had weighed him down, and how a child's simple act had chipped away at it piece by piece until he could finally see light again. During one such event, a young woman in the audience, tears streaming down her face, approached them afterward. "My grandfather flew B-17s, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "He always said there was a plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, that had an impossible story of coming back from the dead. He said it saved his crew more than once. To think that it was this story, that it was your penny, Mr. Thomas, it just means so much." Miller placed a comforting hand on Thomas's shoulder, a profound sense of shared legacy washing over them both. The bond between them deepened with each shared memory, each public appearance. They found a shared purpose in telling their story, not just as a historical anecdote, but as a testament to resilience, the unexpected connections that shape lives, and the enduring power of hope. Miller, who had once been haunted by the past, now found solace in reliving it, transforming bitter memories into profound gratitude. Thomas, who had carried the quiet guilt of his disappearance, now felt a deep sense of belonging and validation, his childhood fear replaced by the pride of his impact. One crisp fall afternoon, as they sat on Miller's porch watching the leaves turn crimson and gold, Thomas presented Miller with a small wooden box. "I had this made for you," he said, his voice a little shaky. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a beautifully crafted replica of a B-17, no bigger than Miller's palm. On its tiny fuselage, an inscription was etched: "To Sergeant Miller, for never giving up the search, the spirit of St. Louis flies on, fueled by a single penny and endless hope. Thomas." Miller picked up the model, his fingers tracing the inscription, his eyes misting over. He looked at Thomas, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. It wasn't just a gift. It was a tangible symbol of their intertwined destinies, a recognition of the profound impact they'd had on each other. "Thomas," he finally managed, his voice raspy, This means the world to me." In return, Miller reached into his own pocket and pulled out the original tarnished penny, the one Thomas had sent him in the letter. "This," Miller said, placing it in Thomas's outstretched hand, "this belongs with you. It started everything. It's your legacy." Thomas clutched the penny, the weight of it in his palm feeling like a lifetime of stories. He knew he would cherish it, not just as a good luck charm, but as the spark that ignited a friendship, a career, and a purpose that defied all odds. Their friendship became a quiet legend in Green Valley, a story told in diners and barbershops, a testament to the unexpected turns life could take. They aged together, their steps slowing, their memories sometimes fading, but the core story, the B-17, the penny, the search, and the reunion, remained vividly etched in their minds. They were two men, from different generations and different walks of life, brought together by an improbable miracle, forever bound by a moment of unexpected ingenuity. Miller, once a hardened skeptic, now lived with a lightness he hadn't known possible. The war's shadows still lingered, but they were no longer all-consuming. Thomas had not only fixed a broken engine, he had in essence mended a broken spirit. And Thomas, the boy who ran from fear, had found a father figure, a friend, and a profound sense of closure, knowing that his small, desperate act had led to such a powerful, positive ripple effect. Their lives, once so disparate, had converged into a singular, beautiful narrative of healing and connection. Their lives, once so disparate, had converged into a singular, beautiful narrative of healing and connection. As years turned into a gentle twilight, Miller and Thomas remained steadfast friends. Their shared history, once a source of quiet yearning for Miller and a silent burden for Thomas, transformed into a wellspring of profound peace and mutual respect. They were often seen together, two old men sharing a bench at the local park, their conversations punctuated by comfortable silences and the occasional shared chuckle. Miller's gruff exterior had softened considerably, replaced by a warmth that radiated from a spirit finally at peace. Thomas, in turn, carried himself with a quiet confidence, no longer the scared runaway, but a man who had found his place in the world, validated by the very veteran he had once fled. Their story, now widely known, became a beacon of hope for many in Green Valley and beyond. It was a tale recounted at community gatherings, a reminder that even the smallest acts of ingenuity could ignite a lifetime of purpose, and that forgiveness and understanding could bridge the widest chasms of time. Thomas's grandchildren grew up hearing the legend of the B-17 and the copper penny, a cherished family lore that spoke of courage, second chances, and the unbreakable bonds forged in the most unexpected ways. Young Sam, the curious grandson, often asked Miller to retell the story, his eyes wide with wonder at the image of his grandfather, a small boy bringing a giant war machine to life with nothing but a coin. Miller would oblige, his voice rich with affection, often adding new details, painting a vivid picture of the roar and the subsequent scramble. As the leaves turned for the last time that year, Miller passed away peacefully in his sleep, a faint smile on his lips. His final thoughts, his family believed, were of the B-17, the penny, and the boy who had brought him back to life. Thomas was among the first at the funeral, his face etched with sorrow, yet also with a profound sense of gratitude for the friendship they had shared. He spoke of Miller, not just as a veteran but as a mentor and a true friend, a man whose relentless search had ultimately led them both to a deeper understanding of life's intricate tapestry. Only a few months later, Thomas joined his old friend. He too departed quietly, leaving behind a legacy not just of aerospace engineering, but of a life lived with integrity and a heartwarming testament to the power of human connection. The small wooden B-17 model, the one Thomas had gifted Miller, found its way into Sam's hands along with the original tarnished penny. Sam, now a young man, understood the weight and significance of these artifacts. They weren't just tokens, they were symbols of a friendship that had spanned decades, a story that had begun with a broken plane and ended with two mended souls. The two men's meeting had lasted a mere afternoon, but their brotherhood had endured for years, a testament to the unexpected paths life can carve. Their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest acts of heroism aren't on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments of connection, in the simple ingenuity of a child, and in the unwavering hope of a man who refused to give up. What will you do with your penny of hope? Will you hold on to it, or will you use it to spark something incredible? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that inspire and connect us all.